Prime Minister's questions.
Member for Caroni Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Could the Prime Minister confirm whether a foundation document was prepared by Professor Carl Theodore, Director of the Health Economics Unit at the UWI St. Augustine campus, to inform and guide the work of the Prime Minister's Roadmap to Recovery Committee?
Madam Speaker, you may recall an incident in this House when I sought to speak to my colleagues about this management of the COVID threat. I had some difficulty getting that opportunity, but I must thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing that statement to be made. In that statement, I indicated that two things will be done with respect to the government's appreciation and handling of the nature of the threat. One, that we will do an immediate assessment of our circumstance. And secondly, as the challenge progressed, we will do further detailed analyses with respect to our management. It is in that context that Professor Theodore, as mentioned by the member for Caroni Central, was authorized by the Ministry of Finance to do a study, an immediate study, in the context of the first part of my commitment. And Professor Theodore and his very enthusiastic team of young professionals did that study, and it was made available to the Minister of Finance. It was discussed by the Minister of Finance and a team of cabinet members, and it has now become, it was presented to the recovery team that has been announced publicly, and it now forms part of the working papers of that recovery team, which is carrying out further work.
Member for Caroni Central.
Thank you. Is the distribution of that document limited to the members of the Road to Recovery Committee?
Prime Minister.
The document is part of the work of the Recovery Committee, and its distribution will be controlled by that committee as relevant.
Supplemental, member for Caroni Central.
A document like that, Honourable Prime Minister, is important because if it informs, if it is a foundation piece for the work of the committee, which will ultimately become policy of the government for the country, then it is important that that document be well known. And therefore, I'm asking the Honourable Prime Minister if he does not think, given the nature and importance of the document, that it should perhaps be laid in Parliament, so at least the Parliament will be aware and it will become a public document.
Madam Speaker, I agree with my colleague that it is an important document. If it wasn't an important document, I would not have commissioned it. But the document is a working paper, and I do not intend to take the kind of advice that I get from my colleagues on the other side, if they proceed in that way. A working document which forms part of the work of a recovery committee. The recovery committee is going to consult and is consulting widely with the national community and will produce a document which eventually, I presume, and I expect will be before this Parliament. So I see no need at this stage to provide working documents to the Parliament so that my colleagues on the other side could take it and say it was this and it wasn't that and it wasn't that, when in fact it's a document which forms the basis of further analysis, further discourse, and of course at the appropriate time, any content of that document which is relevant would be made available to this Parliament. So my colleagues are just being premature and partially mischievous.
Member for Caroni
Yeah,
Central.
there was no mischievous intent in my question, Honourable Prime Minister.
That is my opinion.
Okay.
That's fine.
So is there going to be a question? Member for Caroni Central, please proceed to the question.
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed to your question.
Yeah. would the Prime Minister reconsider laying this document in Parliament for the following two reasons? One is that if it is the base document and there is anything wrong or amiss or questionable in the assumptions.
Member for Caroni Central, you have 15 seconds, which you have expended to ask the question.
No, I'm asking a question, ma'am.
Member for Caroni Central, you have 15 seconds to ask the question, and it has been expended. Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Prime Minister, why is it at every turn you seek to exclude the opposition from any input into policy that will affect us all?
Member for Caroni, member for Naparima.
Yes.
That is not a question that I would allow.
It's not a question.
That's not a question that I would allow. Member, you allow one question. There's one question left.
First question, same question. Honourable Prime Minister, would you reconsider so that the assumptions of the report that is informing the committee can be assessed?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I am very clear in my position on this matter. The document is a part of is a working document in front of a committee that is the committee is in fact quite large, and the committee is doing consultation across the national community, and I see no reason for putting before the Parliament a working document of the committee at this stage. I give this Parliament the assurance that when the committee's work is completed and presented as a piece of work completed by a committee who had an assignment, that document, the work of the committee, will be made available to this Parliament. But in the meantime, the working documents, in whatever form they exist, will not be laid in the Parliament. That is not the behavior of this government. The committee is going to get all kinds of inputs. And if you really wanted that document, you would not have voted against me making a statement in this Parliament in the first place.
Caroni Central, do you have another supplemental? Member for Caroni Central.
Based on this sample pool of 700 persons to be tested and the resultant decision on how to proceed with the opening up of the economy, could the Prime Minister indicate the source of the technical competence to determine the level of risk between a healthy population and the restoration of health to the economy, which has to be determined?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the source of the technical competence on this and similar matters has been identified on numerous occasions by the government, particularly me as Prime Minister, and that source is the professionalism of the healthcare professionals in the public health sector speciality who are the advisors to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. I know that there are people in this House who have no confidence in our professionals, but today I want to thank that professional corps in the Ministry of Health and in Trinidad and Tobago. And for those who thought before that we didn't have a health system and was bad-mouthing it from Toko to Scarborough, from Carinash to Sangre Grande, at least now the country knows that it does have a healthcare sector and it does have a working and functioning world-class Ministry of Health in Trinidad and Tobago. And with respect to the level of risk, Madam Speaker, as in any country, the level of risk to which the population would be exposed in this situation is a matter for the government of the country, taking into account all the information before the government at the time that the decision is being made. And this government will be no different. We will expose the population based on our analysis of scientific data made available to us, and then the government will take a decision as to what level of risk we are prepared to expose the population to.
Supplementary member for Caroni Central.
Like you, Prime Minister, we have every confidence in the health professionals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go and sue them every Monday morning.
But the question is that, for instance, will you be drawing on CAFA, on the World Health Organization, other sources of technical support?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, we have made it clear from day one that Trinidad and Tobago's efforts in this matter has been buttressed by its relationship with WHO, with PAHO, and with CAFA, and will continue so to do.
Supplemental member for Caroni Central.
There is a health side of this, and there is an economic side of this, and there is a risk management side of this. The health professionals are focused on health and economic matters on economic matters,
Caroni
etc.
Central, I can't allow you to make a statement. Could you kindly ask a question? You have 15 seconds to do so.
In that context, who will be the technical expert dealing with the question of the management of risk?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has demonstrated its ability and willingness to approach this matter using the concept of whole of government. And insofar as we have professionals in all fields in the public service, and we can access them in the private service or in the international agencies, the government has demonstrated that its decision is being made by the use of the broadest possible input from professionals across Trinidad and Tobago and, in fact, across the world.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister inform this House as of this date how many applications have been received for the salary, self-employed, and rental grants?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, as a result of the variation of the written text and the actual question asked, I am now to update. I am told that there are 38,000 applications for the salary relief and 12,000 for income support.
Supplementary member for Couva South.
Speaker, I've asked the Prime Minister to inform this House how many applicants have actually received their grants based on the commitment of the Minister of Finance to this House on Monday last.
Madam
Prime
Speaker,
Minister.
and that is the confusion. Madam Speaker, with respect to income support, food support, and rental relief, 2,122 persons have been processed and the proceeds have been sent to the bank payment as of yesterday. 2,000 more will be processed by the end of this week, and we'll continue to increase it as we go forward, Madam Speaker.
Supplementary member for Couva South.
Madam Speaker, because I'm a bit confused based on what the Prime Minister has said. I am asking for each category, and I am not getting the specific from the Prime Minister as it relates to, as of today, how many citizens who are being unemployed, who are crying out, they have no food on their table, and we want to know how many salary relief grants, how many self-employed and rental grants. We cannot have the Minister of Social Development cooking the figures right now.
Member for Vancouver South, please just ask the question.
I have asked the question and I'm not getting the answer
Madam,
from the Prime Minister, Madam Speaker.
Member for Vancouver South.
Madam
Member for
Speaker,
Vancouver South. I understand you might be very passionate about this, but please remember where you are. Just remember where you are.
Yes, I am in the place voted in by the constituents of Vancouver South.
Okay, so I give you an opportunity to retract your behavior, stand up and apologize, or I'll ask you to do something else.
Madam Speaker, I withdraw my comments, but I am seeking answers.
Unreservedly. Stand up, withdraw, unreservedly, and we can proceed.
Madam Speaker, I unreservedly withdraw in the interest of getting the information.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, if the member is prepared to present the question with appropriate notice, I will be in a position to answer it.
Supplemental. Yeah.
Puchis.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, to the Prime Minister on this very matter. Prime Minister, having regard to your information that you just recently, instantly obtained, that 5% more or less of persons applying for the salary relief grant have indeed been sent in the mail their grants. Could you give us some indication, this being, I think, April 29th, the end of April, when the other 95% of the initial applicants can be receiving their payments?
Madam Speaker, I just want to remind members of this House and the national community that when the Minister of Finance made this offer to provide salary relief support, he was very careful to point out that such relief would become available at the end of April into the first week, into early May. Because, Madam Speaker, to make the payments on the day when it was made was known to be unreasonable and unavailable. These payments are being made on time. The commencement of the payments at the end of April. And as we go into May, steps are being taken to accelerate the payments. This attempt by my colleagues to give the impression that the government owe people money since the 1st of April and it's not being paid is just part of your general mischief. The statement was made because if people are being paid monthly, and we said that the month of April, because you might have lost your job and not being your job in April, at the end of April, your employer wouldn't have paid you, but the government will give you a salary relief support. And we begin to pay that at the last week of April, Madam Speaker. What is their problem?
Supplemental.
Supplemental, member for...
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, everybody making mischief for you. But could I ask...
Member, just ask the question.
Yes, let me get to the question. Prime Minister, could you...
1 minute, please.
Sure.
Member for Naparima, anytime you can't abide by decisions I make, then you are entitled not to be part of this. But if you're going to be part of this body here, you'll abide by my rulings.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, could you indicate for the other category, the self-employed and rental grants, as of this, the end of April, how many persons self-employed and how many rental grants have indeed reached the desired applicants?
Prime Minister.
If the member poses the question with the appropriate notice, that question would be answered.
That is the question on the order paper, sir.
Member for Oropuch is, I believe, your question number 4.
Okay. Could the Prime Minister indicate what extra compensation arrangements and employment-related counseling are being considered for nurses and other healthcare workers facing high risk on the front line in the fight against the COVID-19 virus?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, at this precise moment, that matter is not under consideration, but we in Trinidad and Tobago give the assurance that all our healthcare givers and persons in the front line would avail themselves of the best that the country has to afford in the appreciation of those persons who are in fact detailed to carry out these assignments.
Supplemental.
Thank you very
Member
much.
for Oakwood
Prime Minister, just a few minutes ago, of course, you gave thanks to all these healthcare workers and praised them and so on. Do you believe, apart from giving a clap, that the government should be seriously considering compensation for frontline healthcare workers as requested by the Nurses Association and other related groups within the healthcare facility, or you would just want to give them a clap on Thursday?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I trust that by now the members of my colleagues in this House would know that this government, this PNM government, does not run the business of Trinidad and Tobago by VAPs. Any decision we make here is carefully thought out, and this is one of such decisions that will be carefully thought out before a decision is made on such matter. We do not run the public business by VAPs and public relations.
Thank you very much, and Prime Minister, I'm very happy to hear that, coming from you answering questions
Member
with papers in your hand you just
for
received.
Oakwood.
The question is,
The question, please.
yes, the question is, would you consider additional compensation as requested by the Association of Nurses instead of providing $50 million for upgrading hotels, that some of that money could be used as compensation for healthcare professionals in these high-risk times?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question.
Continue.
Member for Oakwood.
Yes, thank you. Could the Prime Minister give this House an update on the total expenditure incurred thus far relative to the novel coronavirus pandemic?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I am sure that members of this Honourable House would have noticed that the Minister of Finance had given a figure on Monday. A few hours have since passed, and if the member is wanting to get new figures from here on into the future, he can pose an appropriate question with the appropriate notice. But this question was answered on Monday by the Minister of Finance, who volunteered it to the population.
Could I?
Supplemental.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, so you're saying between Monday and today, no new expenditure has been incurred, as I asked the question, as an update on expenditure. We knew what was said Monday, today is Wednesday. Is there an update, or is it that between Monday to today, not a single cent was spent more?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question. It was answered. Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister confirm whether or not his government intends to assist small and medium-sized enterprises with their rental payments, and if so, when?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance has made a number of initiatives to bring relief to members of the business community, including the small, medium, and medium-sized enterprises. This matter is still under consideration, and I am not in a position at this stage to say what the outcome is going to be in the end. But we have already made a lot of provisions to bring some relief in a variety of ways, listed in this House and outside this chamber. If at the end of the day, this matter of rental comes up as one of the decisions to be made, Madam Speaker, I'm sure it will be made by Finance.
Supplemental. Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, would you consider, or your government consider, providing grants to SMEs rather than loans, taking note of the limited or no revenue generating capacity of these SMEs?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I would simply say, taking into account that the government's revenues are considerably contracted, any request for additional expenditure must take into account that the ability to fund such things would be a consideration. However, it cannot be said that the government has not made efforts to bring relief to persons in this category. And if there is further relief which can be made available, rest assured, Madam Speaker, that it will be.
Member for Naparima.
Speaker, is the Prime Minister aware of allegations that our country is involved in trading with energy interests in Venezuela in contravention of the U.S. sanctions imposed against that country?
Prime Minister.
I am aware of no such thing, Madam Speaker.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you. Could the Prime Minister state whether his government has responded to concerns expressed by the Barbados' Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade regarding allegations that his country was facilitating certain actions that worked against our closed border policy.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I am concerned about any attempt to give the impression that there is bacchanal between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados on this or any other matter. And I've given the assurance that our relationship, that between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados, is as good now as it ever was, notwithstanding the best efforts of some. I want to just say, Madam Speaker, in answer to this particular question, that what we did in Trinidad and Tobago is to make it very clear to our very friendly and loving neighbor that we have a situation which we have clarified for them, in that Trinidad and Tobago's border is closed, and therefore we will not be in a position to accept any and every attempt to come into Trinidad and Tobago via another airport, because if that is so, we might as well open Piarco. That has been made very clear, Madam Speaker, and I can give you the assurance. It is very well understood, and we go forward in brotherly love. That doesn't seem to please some people, but the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados will not be damaged by these efforts.
Supplemental, member for Naparino.
Thank you. Prime Minister, I know that you may be of the view that relations...
Question, please.
Yes, the question is coming up. It may be excellent, but what steps, this is the question, are being taken to arrest the growing anger in Barbados among its citizens against statements made by the Honourable Minister and actions against our own citizens in Barbados?
Madam Speaker, all attempts to fuel growing anger among the population of Barbados have failed, and failed miserably. The majority, the vast majority of the people of Barbados have no difficulty with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And Madam Speaker, if there is a difference of opinion and a difference of interpretation, because of the nature and the strength of our relationship, Madam Speaker, it poses no threat to our relationship, notwithstanding the best efforts of underminers in and out of this country.
Supplemental, member for Naparino.
Does the Minister, Prime Minister, what interpretation you put on the letter by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Barbados that he is distressed by your actions and the comments of the Minister?
Madam Speaker, distress comes in a variety of ways. And in international diplomacy, distress is replaced by love and affection.
Supplemental.
Member for Cuba South.
Supplemental. Supplemental.
Member for Opuchi.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, did your government at any time have evidence that an independent CARICOM country, Barbados, was colluding with citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to breach our borders? Yes or no?
Madam Speaker, I have no idea what he's talking about.
They into mischief too.
Member for Opuchi East.
Sorry.
And let this be the last occasion that I
I have no questions.
Member for Cuba South.
Madam Speaker, could the Prime Minister inform this House as to the specific status of the pandemic leave measure, which was announced as a social support measure on the 15th of March 2020?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, on the 15th of March 2020, the reference to pandemic leave was a discussion that took place very early in our response to the growth and progress of the COVID-19 virus. This matter has been largely overtaken by the decisions that we have taken with respect to the stay-at-home, where the entire public sector workforce, except essential workers, and the public sector, where we have embarked upon significant extension of the stay-at-home, which rendered much of this concern redundant. And of course, Madam Speaker, as we go forward, if persons are medically certified to have been affected by the leave and affected by quarantine considerations, then their leave matters are being considered, and that is a matter that should not be of undue problem, because people are home being paid, and those who are having further extension will find favorable consideration.
Supplemental, member for Cuba South.
Sir, could you confirm for the benefit of this House if pandemic leave has been officially cancelled or rejected by your cabinet?
Madam Speaker, the elements, when this pandemic leave arose as a discussion matter, it was made very clear that it had to be approved by the cabinet. And I was saying, Madam Speaker, that the cabinet went further than that and kept the working force at home. So the concern that generated pandemic leave in its fullness is no longer with us. And the matter of whether you have some element of it still being considered is still there, but there is no pandemic leave as was initially envisaged to take care of any person who may be away from work more than their 14-day sick leave. Madam Speaker, that has been superseded. But there are considerations for other developments, and that is the matter for the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, and that's where the matter lies at the moment.
Honourable members, the time allotted for Prime Ministerial questions is now spent.